For some reason, the U.S. media didn't think that little detail was worth covering. And unfortunately, YouTube considers our work exposing the deep state as bullying. Oh, wait. We were also told the opposition protesters were just peaceful activists who wanted a chance to join the European Union. That was the official narrative that the U.S. media outlets were peddling, but the real story we broadcast to the world back in 2014 is far more ominous. It turns out that the most powerful and influential contingent in the opposition was a coalition of literal fascists and neo-Nazis. And they aren't peaceful. In fact, they're extremely brutal. The most prominent among these extremist groups is an organization called Svoboda. The Svoboda Party, which traces its roots to the Ukrainian Partisan Party in World War II, was loosely allied with Nazi Germany. Until 2014, Svoboda had been called the Socialist Nationalist Party, a deliberate reference to the nationalist socialism of the Nazis. And we're not throwing the term neo-Nazi around here as an empty slur. The leader of Svoboda, Oleg Tyanibuk, has openly targeted Jews and ethnic Russians in Ukraine for many years. In 2004, he was kicked out of Viktor Yushchenko's government for a speech calling for Ukrainians to fight against the, quote, Muscovite Jewish mafia. And in 2005, he signed his name to an open letter to the leadership of Ukraine entitled, Stop the Criminal Activities of Organized Jewry. And none of this was a secret. It was right out in the open. The BBC was reporting on the danger that Svoboda's rise posed back in 2012, and the EU passed a resolution that same year condemning Svoboda as, quote, racist, anti-Semitic, and xenophobic. Yet somehow the U.S. government thought it was appropriate to officially back these extremists. This is a picture of Victoria Nuland from the U.S. State Department meeting with Oleg Tyanibuk in February 2014. And this is a picture of Senator John McCain sharing a stage with Tyanibuk in December 2013. Why would the U.S. government work with the neo-Nazis? Because they thought they could control the situation. It's kind of like why the corrupt FBI uses informants and spies who have drug addiction problems or criminal charges hanging over their head. The CIA thought they could install their puppets behind the scenes, sell them guns, funny laundered money to their operations, and manipulate the situation in their favor. That same Victoria Nuland who met with Svoboda in February 2014 was caught on another leaked call discussing which corrupt cronies on their payroll they would put in power.
What do you think?
I think we're in play. The Klitschko piece is obviously the complicated electron here, especially the announcement of him as Deputy Prime Minister. And you've seen some of my notes on the troubles in the marriage right now, so we're trying to get a read really fast on where he is on this stuff. But I think your argument to him, which you'll need to make, I think that's the next phone call we want to set up, is exactly the one you made to Yachts. And I'm glad you sort of put him on the spot on where he fits in this scenario. And I'm very glad he said what he said in response.
Good. So I don't think Klitsch should go into the government. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you think, in terms of him not going into the government, just let him sort of stay out and do his political homework and stuff. I'm just thinking, in terms of sort of the process moving ahead, we want to keep the moderate Democrats together. The problem is going to be Tyanibuk and his guys. And, you know, I'm sure that's part of what Yanukovych is calculating on all of this.
I think Yachts is the guy who's got the economic experience, the governing experience. He's the guy, you know, what he needs is Klitsch and Tyanibuk on the outside. He needs to be talking to them 4 times a week. You know, I just think Klitsch going in, he's going to be at that level working for Yatsenyuk. It's just not going to work.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Okay.
The mainstream media tried to draw your attention away from the most important part of the conversation by focusing on the fact that she used a cuss word when referring to the EU. But wait, didn't Victoria Nuland admit that she set, quote, preconditions for the Ukraine to pursue utopia through their European aspirations after giving them $5 billion?
As they promote civic participation and good governance, all of which are preconditions for Ukraine to achieve its European aspirations.
Thank God Nuland and Eric Ciaramella have access to CIA news media teleprompters because Americans and Ukrainians might actually hear her talking out of 7 sides of her mouth. On a very serious note, the U.S. government thought they could control this beast as they effected a coup, but they were wrong. Svoboda and the right sector are not toys to be played with. These groups are heavily armed, they're forceful, and they viewed the manufactured crisis in 2013 and 2014 as an opportunity to reshape Ukraine in their own image. This video shows a prominent leader from the right sector, Alexander Mashiko, brandishing an AK-47 in Parliament, letting them know who's in charge. This is the same Alexander Mashiko who has made public statements in the past vowing to, quote, fight against Jews, communists, and Russian scum for as long as he lives. Apparently, the U.S. government has been a little slow to catch on to the fact that their hand has been fully exposed. In March of 2014, a senior U.S. official told Reuters that, quote, since entering the Ukrainian parliament in October of 2012, the Svoboda leadership has been working to take their party in a more moderate direction and to become a modern European mainstream political party. The leadership has been much more vigilant about expelling or otherwise punishing individual members who engage in xenophobic behavior or rhetoric. The reality of the matter is that as ridiculous as this position makes Washington look, they were trapped. They can't deny that Svoboda and right sector was running the coalition government when Svoboda held 5 senior posts, including the deputy prime minister position and the right sector's Dmitry Yarrow, which was the country's deputy secretary of national security. Now, don't forget, the entire government was assembled by Robert Kagan's wife, Victoria Nuland herself. But what about that dramatic video?
I am the Ukrainian, the native of Kiev.
That went viral as the crisis was unfolding. It was so compelling, so heart-wrenching. Yeah, but who made it? Whisper to a roar. Who are these people? Oh, look, a link in the description. Let's click it. They have a website and behind the scenes section. Oh, it lists the filmmakers who say here, Larry Diamond, inspiration and executive producer. Well, he's also a member of the Council on Foreign Relations and the National Endowment for Democracy. And he's an advisor for the U.S. State Department. You know the funny thing about the National Endowment for Democracy? Even though they call themselves an NGO, they get virtually all their money from the U.S. government. Of course, with the encouragement of George Soros and perks from the Clinton Foundation. You can easily verify this by downloading their annual financial disclosures or comb through the forensic documentation of the Clinton Foundation's pay-to-play scheme investigations that the FBI has covered up for years. We're sure it's just a coincidence that the NAD had been pouring massive amounts of money into Ukraine to, quote, strengthen democracy and civil society. That sounds so nice, doesn't it? Democracy, civil society. Where'd that term come from? Yep, you guessed it, Hillary Clinton.
When Barack Obama was elected,
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
Hillary Clinton comes in as Secretary of State.
I just wanted to have a chance to publicly say thank you. I think Hillary will go down as one of the finest Secretaries of States we've had.
And at that point, she sets up a private email system. I think now it's pretty clear that part of what was going on is they were setting up the underpinnings that would set up the Maidan. She introduced a program called Civil Society 2.0.
And what we've done with Secretary Clinton's Civil Society 2.0 program is we've taken one of America's undeniable strengths, the strength of our technology and of our innovators, and we've put them to work in service of our diplomatic goals.
This is a way for the U.S. government to work directly with NGOs like International Renaissance, funded by George Soros. And while working with those NGOs, fund money to them, but also training, and the kind of training that would be used when the Maidan would start. That Civil Society 2.0 program shows that they understand that cyber technology, that smartphones, that all of that technology, the tactics of activism were changing.
Of course, by now you've realized that when they talk about spreading democracy, what they really mean is regime change. And they're willing to work with the most despicable elements when it's expedient. With the CIA's help manufacturing chaos, death, and destabilization, the deep state gets to extract billions in taxpayer dollars from Ukrainians and Americans alike. All you have to do is overthrow the government, install Hunter Biden and CIA agent Cover Black on the Burisma board, launder tens of millions of dollars through offshore banks, and then fire the prosecutors who might figure it all out. Did I also mention, if President Trump and President Zelensky get wind of what's going on, just have Eric Ciaramella blow the whistle on 2020 election meddling if Trump mentions Joe Biden. Then have Robert Kagan's friends at Lawfare hijack congressional staff to railroad Trump into an impeachment. Adam Schiff should be willing to participate, especially since his name is all over Rudy Giuliani's money laundering evidence. This is exactly the same game script over and over by the Obama CIA that they played in Syria and Libya. Oh, and we can't forget Benghazi, but I can't talk about Benghazi, Uranium One, or the Clinton Foundation. Comey's still running around free, and I might get shot or accused of conspiring to take over a bird farm at the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge. The fact is, the deep state has time and time again funded known extremists, literal terrorist organizations who've been documented massacring whole towns, and even after those extremists used sarin gas on thousands of civilians like they did in Syria and got caught by the UN, Washington not only covered for them, but the deep state always comes in on cue to offer solutions to the terror they manufactured. There's a phrase for this: Hegelian state-backed terrorism. Unless President Trump has drained this part of the swamp to this day, they may still be funding those murderers, training them, and sending them weapons, creating war for the purposes of bringing peace, with all of their cronies conveniently installed by diplomats like Hillary Clinton and Victoria Nuland when the regime has changed. All of this nonsense was guided by some of the so-called diplomats you saw testify in Congress during the impeachment hoax hearings. But who writes these scripts? Adam Schiff? Take a step back and look at the patterns. The real stakes of this drama are much bigger than Ukraine or Syria or Benghazi and Libya. These are not random or isolated events. We are witnessing the final stages of a geopolitical chess game that is designed by the deep state to end in war, but in order to get that war, they need to convince you, the public, they didn't see any of these pre-planned events coming. They create the chaos so that they can run up to the podium in front of the cameras and tell you that they want to end the chaos by supporting the, quote, freedom fighters. They need you to believe that the other side was the aggressor, and they stand with those who are merely seeking, quote, freedom. They need you to believe that President Trump is trying to meddle in the 2020 election by investigating Joe Biden. They need you to believe that Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff have no other choice but to uphold their oath to the Constitution. They destroy the Constitution so that they can protect the Constitution. These people are counting on you to be too naive to realize that economic warfare and chaos, physical warfare, was actually created by them. Prove them wrong. Share this video, not only on YouTube, but especially on alternative video platforms that genuinely promote free speech and accurate investigative journalism. They're playing chicken with your children's future, and they think you're too stupid to connect the dots. The enemies of the United States of America were created by these people. They're also counting on Google and YouTube CEO Susan Wojcicki to direct you to the, quote, authoritative news sources. And of course, delete our channel that had all of this information cataloged for years. But to them, we're, quote, less authoritative in our coverage of the Ukraine since 2013. We highly recommend that you verify all of the information presented here.